Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about WWF's Steel Cage Challenge on the NES. This is a very strike-heavy game. There's a lot of punching and kicking that goes on. Your punches are your A button and your kicks are your B button. You will occasionally lock up or grapple with your opponent, and in those cases you just need to keep tapping either the A or the B button, and that will cause you to do one of the very few moves that are in this game. You can also do turnbuckle attacks, so you can climb up one of the four corners of the ring and jump off and kind of pray to God that you actually land your move, which you probably won't. They really aren't all that effective. Once you get your opponent on the ground, you can either stomp on them or drop an elbow. Again, good luck actually doing anything with the dropping of an elbow, because you'll probably miss more often than not, and it kind of feels like you need to have your opponent on his second life bar in order to really do any damage by either stomping on them or kicking them. These are all pinfall victories. You can also have count-out victories as well, but those are nigh impossible to achieve. Then there's the Steel Cage Challenge, which is pretty simple. You just climb up to the top of the cage and it's over. If your opponent gets up, you fall off the cage, so you can't really even knock someone off of it. It's really kind of stupid, to be perfectly honest. There are a bunch of game modes in this, so that's kind of nice. You have the single player mode, and with single player you can choose from the WWF Championship, you can choose a tag team match, tag team championships, or just like an exhibition match. You can also select whether you want it to be in a cage or just a regular match, so there's a lot of things you can do here. However, with the tag team matches, I think you need to have a second controller plugged in, because even when I selected single player and tag team, it didn't let me control the second player. So yeah, I don't really think there is a one-player tag team match unless you plug both of your controllers into the console and just go from there. It seems kind of stupid, especially when you look at the other games that allowed you to have just a single-player tag team match where you're controlling both wrestlers. It just feels really dumb the way that they did it with Steel Cage Challenge here. Like the other wrestling games I've looked at, there's no story mode here. So you don't really have a reason for why you're doing things. And I haven't pointed this out before, but it feels really odd that there was never a story mode in one of these wrestling games, especially with how character-driven and storyline-driven both WCW and the WWF were. You would think that even the manual would give some kind of a reason for what's going on here. Like maybe the championship got vacated and you have to have a tournament for a new one or something like that. It really does feel like these were just all up to your own imagination, which is probably true, and it allowed you to create your own storyline and everything. But it was something you had to come up with on your own. The game wasn't going to give you anything at all. This is fine, or at least I remember it being fine when I was a kid, because it let you sort of recreate what was going on the TV shows that you may or may not have been watching. But if you just picked this game up and didn't know anything about wrestling or didn't know anything about the characters, it might have not really connected as well with you. You can also raise the point that you wouldn't have done that if you didn't watch wrestling back in the day, but maybe. You never know. People rented some weird stuff. I remember renting a bunch of strange games that I never would have rented or never would have purchased, and just looked at the box cover and said, yeah, that looks cool. So, yeah, you never. Overall, I think the gameplay is fine. It's not going to blow you away at all, but it works pretty well. The controls are responsive. The steel cage is the only thing that I think is a little wonky because it takes away a lot of your attacks. So like you can't bounce off of the ropes anymore because now the cage is the ropes. So a lot of the running attacks are a little bit trickier to pull off. There are no finishing moves or really special moves here, which is a really big downgrade from some of the other games that I've played. It's also really annoying that every character is basically the same in this. I couldn't tell if one character was stronger, one character was faster. It just felt like they were all carbon copies of each other. And I'll get more into that when I talk about the visuals in just a second. But overall, I think the gameplay is okay, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as Pro Wrestling, Tecmo World Wrestling, or WCW Wrestling. There are some good things in this game, and the visuals are not exactly one of them. The characters are all palette swaps of each other, so no one has their own unique body shape, all the characters are the same height, and there are only minor graphical differences between them. It's annoying, like really frickin' annoying that they did this. It feels a lot like several other games that LJN has published, most notably their X-Men game, where every character is just a palette swap of the other one, with a few minor graphical changes to give you the illusion that you're actually playing as a different character. It's really, really annoying here, because none of these characters are supposed to look the same. Sid Justice should not look the same as Bret Hart. It's just bizarre that they did this. It is really odd when the game even tells you, hey, these two people are different. This guy is significantly taller and much heavier than the other person, so he should be stronger. And then you see them in the ring, and the only difference is one's in black clothes and the other one's in, like, red trunks. That's it. Aside from the characters, things look okay. You have the outside of the ring that you can throw characters to, and you don't really change perspectives when you go to that, so it's okay, but it's nothing amazing. When you win the match, nothing fun really happens. You don't have any flashing on the screen. You don't have anything like that. It's just, you won, and then it cuts to a scene where Mean Gene is the character. He tells you, hey, this guy won, and then he introduces you for the next match. It's just average, to be perfectly honest. Overall, the game looks okay. It's not going to blow you away with its graphics. It's not trying to blow you away with its graphics. This was just something that I feel the developers took on a license and did the best they could and then pieced out and went on to their next project. The big draw is the steel cage. And it kind of looks like the big blue cage that the WWF was using at the time, but yeah, it's just a grid that they slapped on there and replaced the ring ropes with. So there's nothing really great about it. It's just kind of there. Much like the gimmick match that it was inspired by, it's just kind of a gimmick in this game that gives you a different play option. It's nothing that's gonna really blow you away, and I don't think it would be anything that would draw anyone back to this game. Like I said, the graphics are just, they're okay. They're definitely not the biggest concern that I have with this game, but they don't do anything to really elevate it. So I wanted to take a closer look at the manual, just to see if I had missed anything with this game. No, I really didn't. The controls are listed in here. They go into just great detail about the different moves that you can do without really doing a whole lot to make it, make sense. The move list in this for every character is incredibly short because every character has the same moves. And the only thing that it really helps you out with is knowing how to pin your opponent. After that, it's kind of all downhill. It also gives you the roster of the wrestlers that are in this, and it's okay. The game has a decent roster of Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Randy Savage, Ted DiBiase, Roddy Piper, Sid Justice, The Mountie, Bret Hart, Erwin R. Shyster, and Jake Roberts. It's fine. There are a lot of other wrestlers in the WWE that probably could have been in this. And yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at WWF's roster and just see who else could have been added in here. So yeah, the WWF had a total of 83 performers on its roster. This does include the ring announcers, the female wrestlers, managers, so there's more in here than just the wrestlers. But you have characters like Dusty Rhodes, you had Earthquake, Ric Flair is included in this for the 1991 roster. You also had Crush, you had the Ultimate Warrior, you had the Road Warriors, Andre the Giant was still here. There were a ton of wrestlers on this that could have been in this game, but for whatever reason were left out. What I wanted to do was try to find out if there were any licensing issues with a lot of these characters, but I just haven't been able to find any information on that, so I don't really know. That's just a question that's left unanswered. Like a few of the other wrestling games I've seen, there aren't very many tag teams here. Just from looking over the available wrestlers on the game and then in the WWF, there's a lot of tag teams that are left out, and that's kind of a downgrade for a lot of these games. So the upside to this game is there are a bunch of different game modes here. The graphics are okay, and the gameplay is decent enough, but it's lacking a lot of the stuff that's going to keep it out of the top 3 for me. For an LJN game, it's one of their better games that they've published. It's an average game compared to the rest of the NES library, though. Some of the pros I've gone over already. The decent graphics, the decent roster, it's pretty easy to play. The bad things are every wrestler is the exact same. There's a limited move set, and you're kind of required to have 2 controllers or 2 players for a lot of the tag team matches. This was one of those games I was actually looking forward to playing. I remembered playing this in high school when I was playing a lot of NES ROMs, and yeah, I remember looking for it when I collected games in the late 90s. WWF Steel Cage Challenge is a game I really tried to enjoy. I remember being interested in it when I found it on the internet, but I kind of got frustrated with it when I had to go in and change the control scheme so that I could play with one controller. It isn't a bad game, but there are other wrestling games out there that are much better. This is one of those games where you might pick it up if you have some nostalgia for it, or if you're trying to get a complete set of NES games. It's okay, but it's nowhere near as good as Pro Wrestling, Tecmo World Wrestling, or even WCW Wrestling. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you later. Bye.